Welcome back. I'm Stephanie Ruhle. President Trump has long claimed the investigation into Russia's interference in the 2016 election is a witch hunt. He insists there was no wrongdoing by his campaign team. Here's a line you may have heard once or twice.
There is no collusion between me and my campaign and the Russians. No collusion. No collusion. There was no collusion at all. No collusion, which I knew anyway. No coordination, no nothing. It's a witch hunt.
I really hope none of you at home have a no collusion drinking game. That would have hurt. We even heard the president's legal team shift to collusion's not a crime defense.
I've been sitting here looking in the federal code trying to find collusion as a crime.
It's not.
Collusion is not a crime.
Collusion is not a crime. Who cares if you didn't do it? This morning, there's a new report out in the New York Times, The Plot to Subvert an Election, that extraordinarily lays out a detailed account of what exactly we know and don't know about the Russian attack. Quote, the Russians carried out a landmark intervention that will be examined for decades to come, acting on the personal animus of Mr. Putin. Public and private instruments of Russian power moved with daring and skill to harness the currents of American politics. Well-connected Russians worked aggressively to recruit or influence people inside the Trump campaign. Scott Shane is a national security reporter for the New York Times. He co-wrote this comprehensive look back on the evolution of the relationship between President Trump and Putin. And my dear friend Malcolm Nance is the author of both The Plot to Hack America and The Plot to Destroy Democracy. Scott, stunning piece. Bravo to you. What work? Walk me through this massive cadre of information that you have pulled. What is the one detail that you want people to take away from your report?
Well, I think one of the things that struck me and my colleague Mark Mazzetti as we started to try to reconstruct this story, which has come out, you know, over many months in dribs and drabs, is the kind of simultaneous things that were going on. First, the three parts of the Russian attack. There was the hacking and leaking. There was the fake American accounts on social media, on Facebook and Twitter. And then there were these sort of mysterious outreaches to various Trump associates. And that all seemed to sort of speed up and get into high gear just as candidate Donald Trump was emerging from the pack and becoming, you know, the likely nominee in the spring of 2016. So when you go back and look at the timeline, you see literally, for example, that on March 15th, when Trump won 5 primaries and, you know, really people were beginning to say, wow, he is going to be the Republican nominee. On that very day, military intelligence officers in Moscow first started probing the DNC servers with what would become a major hack and leak.
You can take your feelings about Donald Trump, good, bad, or otherwise, out. And when you go through this piece, it's devastating if you actually love our democracy. Malcolm, you have written extensively on this topic, and I want to share one thing that Shane points out in the article that stuck out to me. The reach of their effort was impressive. 2,700 fake Facebook accounts, 80,000 posts, many of them with elaborate images with catchy slogans, and an eventual audience of 126 million Americans on Facebook alone. That was not far short of the 137 million people who would vote in the 2016 presidential election. For me, that is stunning. Is the administration doing enough to prevent this type of attack going forward?
Well, the administration is doing absolutely nothing. I mean, we've been at this for over 2 years. Actually, it was on this station, MSNBC, and I recall in July 2016 we were being called conspiracy theorists talking about this subject.
We've all been at it, reporting about it, talking about it. We're not in a position to prevent it.
You're right. And the administration from even then, before the election, the Trump team and the Republican Party wanted nothing to do with this. Mitch McConnell himself did not want the U.S. intelligence community, John Brennan, to even mention the Russians' names when the Obama administration was going to call them out for this activity. There has been nothing done from the senior administration level to protect this nation from an attack like this happening again. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they even welcomed it.
Well, it would be great if Sheryl Sandberg and company were leaning into this problem. Scott, it wasn't just the ads that boosted the influence of Russians. It was the free accounts. And this is what stuck out to me. The messages and the messages, those are what spread virally because people thought, you know, that they were true, that they were native. How does that get tackled in the future?
Well, I think, yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, initially the reports were from Facebook, which took almost a year to acknowledge this activity. The initial report was that this Russian company, the Internet Research Agency, had spent about $100,000 on ads, and that's not much. It was in an election in which the Clinton campaign and the Trump campaign each spent tens of millions of dollars on Facebook ads. But pretty soon, when you looked a little more closely, it was obvious that that was not the sort of business model, that instead they came up with these you know, very volatile themes on race, on guns, on immigration, you know, designed to sort of provoke people. And the goal was to get people to spread them virally, and it was really you know, very successful. You know, I wrote about this group called Heart of Texas, a Facebook page called Heart of Texas, that summoned people to a rally against an Islamic center in the center of Houston.
Oh my
it had been, the Islamic Center had been there for 14 years. You know, people were accustomed to it, and suddenly people were outside with guns protesting the center, and it was all called using these, you know, these Facebook posts and Twitter posts from St. Petersburg, Russia.
Malcolm, one of the reasons, because it wasn't just about Vladimir Putin wanting to help President Trump, he had deep disdain for Hillary Clinton. And something that has stuck out to all of us, if there was no collusion, President Trump and his administration could step out of the box and say, we need to take action, we need to prevent this, and they haven't now. But even then, no one from the Trump campaign alerted authorities about the contact from Russians. Do we know any instances from the past where a foreign power has tried to infiltrate a campaign and the authorities were not alerted?
No, I don't think there have been any. And Scott made it, actually, on Morning Joe this morning, he mentioned one about Adlai Stevenson. But there have been many attempts by foreign powers to hack into elections. John McCain's, Barack Obama's, every time they went to law enforcement and brought to their attention that there was foreign influence operations trying to penetrate their campaigns. This campaign has been fundamentally different. They, you know, and I think that their collusion starts a lot, or conspiracy starts a lot earlier than 2013, 2014. I think it starts back in 2012. But for the most part, they don't seem to be interested in justice. They don't seem to be interested in the defense of the United States when it comes to Russian influence and information warfare operations. And the only thing that that can spell out is that they are in conspiracy with them, and they are using every tool of power, their masters of the universe attitude, to make it so that they will not be investigated, which of course could lead to the fall of this government.
And that's what's mind-blowing. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. President Trump is the president. How about investigate and go after Russia? I don't actually think President Trump's base would mind. Malcolm, thank you so much for your thoughts. And Scott, again, this is some piece. I recommend everyone get out there and read it. We got to move on now.